I'm from Germany, started Java in 1995, and I'm freelancer, one-man show since 1997. And this is what I did. So I never worked for a larger company, for no company actually, just as consultant. I never really worked, right? I just always had fun. And no politics. This is what I really find in large companies, how they actually operate. So it's really funny to me because, you know, IT person seems to be logical somehow, you know, Boolean logic, and this is know how large company operate. So this is actually also interesting. It's somehow related to the stuff you will see later. And I'm not a speaker actually. This is also a funny story. I try to avoid conferences. So why I will attend ORADEV, and I met Par in Poland, J-Day conference, something like this, right? J-Day, was it? J-Days in Krakow. And he had delivered a great talk about JavaFX, so amazing talk about, I just remember a ball switching between HTML5 web view and native canvas, and this was really nice. And then after this he asked me, would you like to come to a conference? And usually I say no, but okay, I met him in Poland, so I had a great talk. So let's see what happened at the ORADEV, and it was a nice conference. So as I will attend a day again, nice location, nice conference. And yeah, this is what I also do. I just stick with Java, which I really like. So I like the Java programming language itself. So I'm one of the crazy Germans who do not like, you know, to create projects in Clojure, Scala, Groovy in one day in one project. And I also do not learn a new programming language any other day. So I just stick with Java, and I even forget the old stuff, you know. So it's like, this is just challenging enough for me. And I asked a consultant why they actually do Scala and not Java, and the answer was somehow interesting. They say me, because Java is no more challenging enough for me, so I'm searching for something else. So, okay, nice, interesting answer, you know. The business logic should be challenging, not the language, but who cares about this, right? So I like Java. What I do a little bit more right now is JavaScript. This is actually what I also did before Java, but back then it was impossible for a programmer to admit he does JavaScript. Because it's like, you're crazy, why you do not learn something more, you know, really, something, a real programming language. So we did JavaScript undercover with DHTML, and now we can apply the same knowledge back then, right now with more success. Okay, this is about me, and this is I write a blog, Twitter, and oh, I forgot about this. I'm also not a trainer, and this is why what I do 3 times a year an AirHacks workshop at Munich Airport. There's lots of actually people from Sweden and Denmark. I don't know why. Finland is 30%. And what I do 3 times a year, Java E workshop at Munich Airport. So come and fly back. So fly, hack, fly. Why doing this? Because I get lots of requests about workshops, and the only thing I can manage is to organize workshops 3 times a year. This is the only thing I do, just workshop and this week, and my other time I spend in project, because I don't believe in professional training. If I spend all my day in trainings, all my time, I will forget about Java actually, you know. So this is the problem. So how it 2 books, no time for books. This is the AirHacks. Okay. So Michael is who runs the show. He told me the best shows are when the speaker speaks for 10 minutes and you ask questions. This is what I really appreciate. I prepared the slides in the airplane, I have to admit. And the 5 first slides are from our very old presentation, which is actually funny. And so the more question you have to ask me about Java EE and services, whatever, the better it gets. Okay, so I really like questions, and I count on your questions. So really nice. So why SOA? So funny story. So I wrote. If you track me for a while, you will recognize that since the beginning of Java 5 and Java 6, I promote wars, you know, simplicity, simple deployment units, a very basic stuff. And now I learned back then, so 1 year ago approximately, something out there called microservices. So I learned, I read microservices, and what I find out, this is exactly what you should do with Java 6. So actually, if you are reasonable, there is no other way to create successful applications than microservices. And then I thought, okay, why everyone is talking about microservices? Because it's impossible to build something else. So, and what I did, I found an old definition of SOA, which was very similar to microservices. It is actually a microservice. So I just started with this. And this is, it was an accident, but I wrote a chapter for SOA book. And this was, I didn't mention SOAP, so I just wrote, you know, to my apologies, I just wrote a Java EE application, so how it can be without SOAP. And the outcome was I was invited to SOA conferences. And what I did, German SOA conferences, I actually said, how it is sold, it will never work. And although I said this, they invited me over and over again, which was surprising. So, and this is the view slides. What I tried to do is to find definition, what are services actually and what SOA is. Because for me as a programmer, it was black magic. I read a couple of books, and the more I read, you couldn't even summarize the books about SOA. It was like, choreography, ask choreography, no answer. What services, what is services, no answer. About consistency, how to deal with consistency, no answer. And you need compensative transactions, how to do them, no answer. So this was like voodoo combined with black magic. And so if you read about this, it's like, what is this? You're building an application which are valuable to your business, to your customers. And you're exposing an interface which could be valuable to others within your company. Now the question, what you can do else? What do you mean? You build something which is not valuable to your company, or you hide your services not to be used, or what you can do else? I mean, there is no other opportunity than build something valuable to your company, right? And so I was, what is the alternative to SOA? So I called it same old architecture back then, because for me, if I build a service, it could be RMI, Genie, or whatever we did in the last 20 years, it was hopefully valuable to someone else. If someone used this, it was SOA. And now they come SOA conferences, everything would be cheaper, and they did the same over ASCII. We had RMI and CORBA and everything. So, no, it says everything is old stuff. Use XML and ESB, of course, and some ASCII, and it will be better. So another definition was W3C, a set of components which can be invoked and whose interface description can be published and discovered. Of course, everything, right? Everything is a component which can be exposed. I mean, this is what we did for ages in Java. It started with Java beans and ended with AGB. Everything was like this. And also interesting, a component capable of performing a task. So, I mean, this was the best one, yeah? I mean, if you cannot manage this, so what it will become, right? No kidding, this is actually the content of most SOA talks. Now the conferences are dead, of course, because now we have microservices, right? So what it meant to me, if you build application and something is valuable to your company, you should expose the service and others will consume the service, hopefully. Which actually never happened. Why? My observation was large companies are absolutely not interested in reuse. Why not? Because at least in Germany, I have no idea about Sweden, they had departments try to fight against each other, not to cooperate. So if one department exposed a service, no one was interested in consuming the service because every department wanted to gather the budget or whatever they did. So the whole company didn't matter. Just department matter. So whatever we did, it was never used. This was actually their political wars, I would say. There's nothing to do with technology, more like political organization of companies. So you could do this, but I would say reuse just doesn't happen. If it doesn't come, if there is nothing like reuse department with unlimited budget, no one will reuse, interfaces. And this is the same story with microservices and so on, whatever you do. Services are distributed, which became a huge problem. Before SOA, everything was local, so there was no XA needed, no distributed transaction, nothing. It was just straight logic on the host. They say, oh, host is too expensive, S400, 390 or whatever. We have to distribute everything. And now the problem was consistency. We had no synchronous services, which had to be coordinated over the network, which is actually impossible. There's a theorem called CAP, consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, which basically says, if you distribute something, you are screwed, right? It can be just scalable or consistent, but never both, actually. And services had to be coarse-grained because we were remote. We learned from history at the beginning, container managed persistence entity beans. Who remembered this, actually? CMP2O, yes. This was remote per default. It never worked. Because to update a row in the database, you had to invoke a couple of setters. Each setter was mapped to a row, so you end up having multiple transactions over the network to update one single row. So it couldn't work, right? Surprisingly, it was built by one department at Sun, I think, on the West Coast. And on the East Coast, they had someone else who said, how it's called, there is no transparent distribution. So this was actually two departments which invented something else. And SOA was mostly implemented with SOAP. Why, I have no idea, but it was back then. So SOAP and ESB was the placeholder for SOA. Okay, agreed, everyone, so far? So and now it's like, what is the state of SOA? If you're a consultant, mention SOA in some companies, your contract gets killed. So this is or cancelled. This is actually can happen to you, right? So be careful if you mention SOA. So what is microservices? In my eyes, this is pragmatic SOA. It's the same old stuff which could work. Okay. So questions? I think we are already about 5 minutes. So you like questions? So ask me questions. So everyone agreed? Or you saw a project with ESBs which worked and was cheap? Who had experience like this? No one? Okay. In one project, they asked me which ESB they should evaluate. And my question is, try with REST, build a very simplistic proof of concept. It could work. And one year later, they came to me and said, thank you. And development of the whole stuff with over REST was cheaper than evaluation of the ESB. And the evaluation, not implementation, just to test out. So it was a specific case, but it's really interesting. Okay, question, who is using actually J2E, the old stuff, still, 1.4, okay, 2, okay. Java E5 is the newer stuff with no XML but local interfaces? No one? Java E6? Nice. And Java E7? And someone else, so what am I doing? .NET? Spring, very good. And plain Java? No plain Java, okay. So I'm actually stick with Java E, and this is what I like. So Spring guys, your job is to attack me and say, okay, why the crazy Java E application servers? We could do something more lightweight or whatever. This is your job, to find something in the presentation which you don't like, so we can come into discussion. After a few beers, it works really, really nice usually. So from J2E, this is the old stuff. This is museum technology. Right? This is you need lots of XML and Xdoc and code generation to be alive. And Java E is the newer stuff without XML and deployment descriptors. So back then, best practice was tiers. And there was a huge discussion, what is a tier and what is a layer? And tier was a physical one. It was a machine. So it was somehow a best practice back then to have presentation one machine, business logic another, and integration somewhere else. Why? Because they believed the more we distribute, the more it will scale, which was absolutely not true, but it was fashionable for architects to have more boxes on the PowerPoint slide. And if you go to Java E, what we always promoted, so we, as the people from Java 5 and Java 6, hopefully, just to have one war. So all the tiers become layers. And particularly in my case, if you read the Green Book or the others, I always said, okay, we need packages, business, presentation, and integration, and everything is in the war. And this is actually also what microservices are saying, that you have one process, which is a microservice, and then multiple processes. So this is, what is the alternative in Java 6? You will have to deliver 3 wars, which communicate, I don't know, over which protocol, just to be fancy. This is incredible. So this is actually no more doable right now, because no developer would invent something like this right now. Okay? So what was fashionable back then, I never got it, because what in larger companies happened was we had a large ears, and within the ears we had a lots of EJB jars, millions of jars. And I always ask the question, why are you doing this? Because I never saw the situation where someone just deploys one jar. Always the whole ear was deployed. So I really didn't care what inside the ear. So I just had one huge jar, one huge war, period. But the other projects had multiple EJB jars. What will happen probably during the migration, if you would like to deliver a microservice, you could do from the EJB jars, you could create probably a war. So one module from back then will become a war, which could be a microservice. What is a microservice is hard to say, because no one knows what the granularity is. So if you ask, is it large or small? What usually the answer is also my opinion, is something which is created by a small team. And what is a small team? 2 to 5 developers. But it's also what I cannot imagine larger teams, because if you have a team with 10 developers, it's really hard to imagine what they are building. So if you think about this, everything which is great was created by small teams. So if you think about this, I don't know any example in the history of software which something really beautiful was created by a large team. Whatever it looked like, it was either one person or very small team. Starting with Java. So this was actually just a few developers. Spring was one guy as an example for a book. JBoss, one guy. Hibernate, one guy. JBoss is one angry guy actually who wanted a game over project. You know JRocket? It was a Swedish, I think a Swedish invention. There were actually two students. Orion server the same. It was actually two Swedish, I think, students sold Orion server to Oracle to build a whole application server, you know. And now I hear about project, you know, with 100 developers. I have no idea what they're creating. Probably one creates something, the other deletes it, or they are fighting with conflicts the whole day, or what happens. I have no idea. So and in my projects where I try to help the teams, it's the same story. You know, 5 rookies which are really passionate about Java EE create amazing things. And large companies, 9-to-5ers, they just forgot about the fun, the passion, and they create something which no one needs. And they actually forgot why they are building software. This is actually the problem. So small teams, one small team, one war. And each war comes with an explicit interface, of course, and this is usually REST. So in my project is JAX-RS or REST. This is what we get for free. Everything is RESTful, not because of microservices. The problem is we get, you know, problems from all over the place. We need, how it's called, responsive design. So we need HTML5 clients which adapt easily to different UIs, somehow to different UIs. Then we get native clients, iOS and Android. If you would like to create something really great, you need a native interface. And we need other Java applications. So the only reasonable thing you can do right now is to deliver JAX-RS or RESTful web services. SOAP is dead end in my eyes because no one would like to consume SOAP. Try to sell SOAP to iOS developers or to Android developers or to Internet of Things. If even Internet of Things, with a project with the robots were talking to us via JAX-RS services, we didn't even ask about SOAP, you know, to build a SOAP parser in C. It could be fun. So, so we have explicit interface. And what I also said then, that our guys got the question how to communicate between wars, and there were attempts in Java, you know, to create a jar on hex some class loading that you can share the interface. So, okay, no, one war is on war. If you would like to communicate, use REST. So this is a little bit harder, but the wars should be independent of each other. And how to achieve this? And the idea would be one war is something like a business domain, which is hopefully independent from other domains. This is the hope. You know, one domain could be invoicing, and the others are customer relations. And there is a relation between two wars, but it should be as loosely as only possible. Also, old story. What was it called? Maximal cohesion, minimal coupling. This is how components are defined. The same is applicable to wars. Okay, service wars. So essential entities. This is what I usually. This was the idea how to create components in Java 6. What essential entities are? They are like POJOs with the main goal of the whole software package. Like here it would be an OD session. It's probably the most important thing in Fucafe. Or this would be a session. You could probably a session entity, and then you will hopefully get a session service or something like this. Because Fucafe without sessions, I don't think could operate, right? This would be an idea here. And Amazon would be probably a product, but it would start in 1995 as a book. So this is the idea how to find components. And now we have a new term, microservices, how to find microservices. Okay? And by the way, what I like, monolithic architectures. And this is also compatible with microservices, because within the war, everything is monolithic. Everything in process. There is no distribution, nothing, no interfaces, just monolithic, simple application. And the wars are independent of each other. This would be the best possible case. No questions. So amazing attendees. No question. Everyone agrees, right? It's interesting. So, and technology agnostic. What it actually means, SOAP would be, from my perspective, not that technology agnostic, because there are no many clients who would like to consume SOAP. So HTTP and JSON is the most broad, or not on JSON, just HTTP is the best possible case, and JSON is more reasonable because we have great support in Java 6, Java 7, and in JavaScript as well. And WebSockets are coming. It depends really what you are doing, because in internet you can get some trouble with firewalls and proxy servers, whatever. But in intranet, as within a company, you could also use WebSocket for asynchronous communication. Also works great with Java 7. So you get it out of the box support for WebSockets. And also Conway law is also interesting. What Conway's law says is software structure reflects organization structure. So if you have organization with 2 departments and 5 teams, you get probably 5 microservices spread across the department deployment units. This is how it usually is. And in Germany, larger projects, you even have to sign off some interfaces between departments. So it really is that way, right? Conway's law. So as you can see, all laws we know point towards direction microservices, and this is, I would say, the old pragmatic architecture. I cannot imagine to build something else than microservices, however you call them. The opposite would be large teams, ears, multiple jars within the ear, but nothing gets replaced, just the whole ear. It's crazy talk. And with wars and microservices, it's reasonable. One team, one war, I can replace my thing whenever I like, but it's just reasonable. There is actually, we had a great discussion before the show. They say, is it genius or is it just old stuff? And I would say microservices are not genius at all. It's like saying you have to compile Java in order to run it. It's not genius. You have to do this. And I was like, a microservice is the same story. If you don't use something like a microservice, it becomes inefficient. So you have huge teams with large deployment units. Okay. Deployment. Continuous integration deployment. Extremely important. What it actually means, you need a Jenkins, which runs some jobs and do it all the time. Why you should do this? Because you will save time with the automation. So what I see sometimes in projects, so large project with Glassfish, the developers opened localhost 4848, the admin console, went to the application server, found the deployment unit, said upload, found the war, uploaded the war, and it took about 2 minutes, and then they uploaded something wrong, and they wondered why it didn't work. You have to automate everything, and the nice story is all major Java application servers come with lean command line interface, so there is no excuse. So the first thing you have to do to script the application server for creation and deployment and restart. This is what you should do. And I use the scripts always on my machine, and the same scripts are executed on Jenkins or Go or Hudson, whatever you have. Agreed? So that's just reasonable. We had no binary coupling between wars, so what is actually not appreciated, shared interfaces or shared domain classes between wars, because it always means trouble. Binary communication in Java, if you change something, you are screwed. Even if JVM version changes, you can remember introduction, I think it was JDK 1.4, when the cause was introduced to exception and all remote interfaces were broken, for instance. So one team, one war, and I would go even step further. Who cares about wars? And who cares about application servers? And it's one of my, I always ask the question. So what I do every 3 years, I create my own server, so hardware. And that's where my blog and everything is running. And why every 3 years? Because I'm a little bit afraid with the hard disk and all the reliability of the stuff. So say, okay, I'll create a new server, and the old server becomes a fallback. And this was always build the fastest possible machine and buy the parts on Amazon. So those Xeon processors, RAM, or whatever. And it's amazing how cheap it becomes. So I think the recent server with all SSDs was about 2,500 euros without graphic cards, but it was the high-end Xeon machine. And I'm able to run several operating systems at the same time on the same machine. And it starts so fast that it is a CentOS, or right now it is a Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but I don't even see the progress bar. So it is right away the login. So I power on, login. No progress bar anymore. This was Samsung SSDs in a RAID array. Extremely cheap. What I do if I deploy my block, I don't deploy the war, I don't deploy the Tommy anymore, I deploy the whole operating system. And this is one of the projects I can talk about because it belongs to me, but this is also what we do in my clients in the smaller companies. And for instance, I use virtualization on my latest server. Virtualization worked, but it was a little bit slow. So I use KVM, played around, it was great. Oracle VM also worked, but the images were large, and the startup took minutes. What I use for about 1 year is a Docker. So I have a Docker container, which is like process isolation, not virtualization, which it is able to start on Linux or Unix operating system in about 1 second. Really, no kidding. And Docker is like a mix between, I would say, Maven, Git, and there's a build process, versioning, and a file system. So what I actually do, I create one file. It takes a few seconds. So I have it on my machine. I can show you how it works. It's a different topic. And then I do it on my machine. I tested everything. If it works, git pull on my server, and I rebuild the image, and it's the same, absolutely the same image is running on my application server. So there's no deployment anymore. Why? Because no one cares about your war. No one cares about your application server. Your customers are caring about the service being available on the internet. So what it actually means, the less you deploy, the better it is. One file in production, one go, started, no problems. Don't even try to play, with millions of jars in production. Who cares about this? Hot deployment is crazy. No. So what I do, one deployment and it goes. You wanted to ask a question?
I'd like to comment on that because we are using Docker.
Oh,
Not in production, but starting to use it. And one thing that I've been thinking about, because what I tend to do is to have a Docker image with one war, and we're on Davos, so we have
yes.
one application server with one war,
yes.
and in a Docker container. So, and then the concept of the JE application server becomes uninteresting because it's just a minor part of that war.
Yes.
More than an application server where you deploy a lot of.
Yes, exactly. Shared deployment is actually no more interesting. This is absolutely no more. And on the AirHacks in Munich, what I had a slide, I don't know whether you remember the machine 18K from Sun. It was a huge machine, costed millions. And I actually was about to buy one for €1,000, to store my books inside. So I wanted, because it was cheaper than furniture from the shop. Really, it was cheaper than. So, but back then, this was why, and we use on this machine, we use application servers to save money, because RAM and CPUs were 100,000 of D-marks or euros back then. But right now, who cares about RAM? I mean, you can buy 32 gigs for 100 euros or something like this. Who cares about departments, of course? In Germany, we have one department have to buy from other department RAM. It costs like a Porsche, but this is a different story. This is crazy. I don't get it. This is I have to study something else, not computer science. But this is what I do. This becomes only what is interesting for application servers. So what interests me is I get everything for free. So the whole platform is there. I don't care about dependencies. Then command line interface. I have to automate everything, administration, monitoring, and documentation. What I really love is if I go to jcp.org, all PDFs are free, and there is the single truth. You can start with this. If it's a little boring to read, if you don't like this, read books. But this is actually my major selling point about Java EE. Shared deployment is crazy right now. Because, what? Yeah.
I think one thing that's interesting still from the part of the application services is the JNDI configuration towards the environment.
Yes. So your application sees just the same names, independent of staging. Yeah. This is, of course. But this is, application server is like an operating system for my application, and I don't care about this. As for me, it's really Java is the simplicity. So actually I have no time, but I started Java before Java EE. And before Java EE, it was crazy. There were 50 application servers, and they were not even similar. So it was impossible there was a persistence power tier with complete different deployment than the others. With J2E, they became similar. Yes?
You mentioned that microservices are pragmatic, they're more pragmatic, but why not go all the way and use something like drop wizard, which really is pragmatic? It's like, why use an application server when you can use drop wizard?
Yes, I have no idea with drop wizard, but Spring Boot, for instance, like this, uses something similar. So
so it's Spring Boot, but it's still more complex. So drop wizard really embraced the idea that we want to be pragmatic. We don't want to evolve things like dependency injection because you don't need it most
but I really need it.
It's like really focused on this is something, and you run it as a jar only, because they also realize that when you're running something like Docker or Core OS or something, you don't need an application server because that's overhead that you don't want, and it adds to the complexity.
Yeah, I mean overhead. So pragmatic overhead.
Yeah.
So I measured it multiple times. If the old Glassfish, for instance, V2, the overhead, runtime overhead, the V2, it was about 1 millisecond EGB, which was crazy. The RAM overhead is about 25 megs of RAM. Yeah. It is equal to all application servers. Tomcat is about 5. So would I really save at 20 megs? I don't care about this, not at all. Download size of application servers is around 100 megs. Whatever you download, WebSphere is another story. What they are delivering, I have no idea. But it cannot be bytecode. There should be some, you know, HD videos or something else. But I don't know. It is crazy. But if you look at all, I have no project experience with Drop Wizard, so I cannot comment on this. But we look.
I can comment on Drop Wizard. So if I remember correctly, they are. I forgot the name of it.
This was Netflix.
It's Yammer who's built it. But what's the server called? It's the one that took up a competition with Tomcat. Jetty. They
Okay.
bundle a Jetty server within the Java.
Okay.
You could do with an embedded Glassfish.
Yes.
It's an embedded Jetty.
Yes. But
Yeah,
It
but,
does-
but yeah, what they focus on is that there's a cost to development capacity. I mean, having all the frameworks, it might not add that much during runtime or memory-wise, but it adds to the cost of developing the software.
and this is what I don't get, because I think what you should do, you can do Drop Wizard versus Java EE. A very simple application. I will head on stage Java EE, someone who's Drop Wizard, whatever, from the beginning, from the installation, setup, everything, and you will see there will be no much difference. Because what I believe in, without Drop Wizard, what I believe Tomcat and Jetty don't matter anymore. Why? Because there was no single project in recent years, I look at this, just with servlets. Something like this does not exist. And I'm working with Java since really 1995. I'm really bored to find best of breed dependencies. This is not a problem. It's not my problem. What I would like to have, you know, somehow recent JAX-RS, somehow recent transactions monitoring, everything in place, and then I build I don't build Twitters, you know, I build just boring enterprise applications. So Java 6 application server would be good enough. Java 7 even better, but Java 6 I'm absolutely satisfied, and I can really build very lean applications. And I will interview some companies, startups, which created applications running on Java 6, and they were surprised how simple it is. The problem is what happens. Consultants, external people like me, they read about Java 6, they come in and apply whatever they know to your project, which is crazy. What I do in my projects, I delete 80% of the stuff. It's not needed. So really, what you need to start with Java EE are probably 5 annotations, and they're extremely productive. And then, but if I get questioned, then yeah, but what if we get, you know, multiple implementation of an interface? Then I saw a qualifier. Okay, what if then, and then saw more and more, and they say too complex. Like, yeah, but you asked the question. You don't need it in an enterprise project, so forget about this. But really, I could show you a simple applications. It cannot be any simpler. So what is really interesting, if we have time, I will show you how a Java EE application looks like, and I will challenge you to tell me what is superfluous, what we can delete from the application, if it's Java. This is really what I don't get. And with Docker, it becomes even more interesting, because what I did, I have one base image with Glassfish. So I don't care about Glassfish anymore. I inherit from the image, put my war, I am done. So this is exactly, I could be probably a little bit faster with Drop Wizard, because the startup would be 1 second faster, but I don't care anymore about on my server. You know, what I'm talking about is the minor optimization of 3% or whatever. No one cares about this. But I get your point. So what could be interesting, you know, to delete stuff from Java EE, which becomes less and less interesting. This is what partially happens in the web. But even this, we have web profile, which comes with most recent stuff. Because there is no runtime difference, I have to admit, I always use the full profile. I always use Tommy Plus, always Glassfish full, always JBoss full, because it doesn't matter. The download size is, the difference is 30 megs, no runtime difference. So why I would, you know, use the smaller one? Because it really doesn't matter. And what I don't like to Java EE is too modular. What I would like, you know, one huge jar, download it and go. And, you know, JAX-RS, JSF, I always need everything. I always need EJB, CDI, and whatever. We have in Germany, it's very popular to talk, you know, CDI without EJBs. And they create their own transactions, whatever. It's like, but who cares about this? All applications of us come with transactions. Why you will create your own? It's fun. It's a conference. But in project, no one cares, you know? So, but if you are developing Facebooks, Twitters, or your cloud, you have to think like this. Then the overhead of the application server becomes significant, because you know the 20 megs runtime overhead is huge if you have 100 of services, and it would give you absolute right. Then even Drop Wizard would be too much. Just, you know, very thin HTTP server like Node.js does, just this, and just customize this. But this becomes too expensive for an enterprise project. You don't need such optimization in an enterprise project, really. And in most cases, if something doesn't work, it's the database. Locking, transactions misunderstood or whatever. This is, or distribution. But I got your point, yeah? There should be something to optimize, but it's usually not a problem if you don't have WebSphere. But WebSphere also fixed the problem. There's WebSphere Liberty profile. It's very thin. You have to try it. WLP, download. This is like you can buy a license even for this. And it feels like Whitefly or even Tomcat. So if you buy the whole WebSphere stuff, this is a huge thing. Everything else is really reasonable. I hope you agreed somehow. But I can show you the source code, and then we can talk about source code. But this is a esoteric discussion. Anyway, this is the first time for ages where I try to start with slides a little bit more. Usually I will hack from the beginning. So.
One comment and then one question. First, the comment is that the complexity can also be like if you use JBoss Enterprise Application Platform and you want to upgrade REST easy, you can't do it in mail and you have to change jar files in your modules. That is the complexity you get.
Yeah.
And the question is right, one team, one war.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we have around 5 teams with 10 microservices or WAR file. And if I want to change one functionality, I maybe have to hack in 3 WAR files or 3 microservices. What is the reason that you make this a strong mapping, one team, one WAR?
It's not strong mapping. It's a usual mapping because the hope is one team cares about a business domain or business functionality. This is a war. This is what usually happens. But if your team is not organized after functionality, you have to rethink the organization. But this is what usually happens. One team cares about, I don't know, invoicing or marketing, then you get the one marketing war. But if you have a cross-functional team, then you have to rethink the structure. This is why I said it. And the first was, JBoss. It's a different story. There are two modes if you are a Java EE developer, I would say. I prefer the first one. The first one would be you are working with daily builds of the application server. So if you are working with daily builds and you find a problem, you will report the problem to developers. They will say thank you, and the problem is going to be fixed in the next few weeks. This happens usually. But this is, in larger companies, a little bit problematic because no contract, no one you can sue.
I don't want to have a fix. I want to upgrade, for example, to Java, to the, what you call JBoss OS version of REST easy.
But this is not what you wouldn't do on Java EE. I don't want to do this because it's not tested. This is what I never would like to do. I would like to upgrade the whole JBoss, and I hope that JBoss Red Hat guys will test all the interdependencies for me. You know what I mean?
Yes, but we have to use the enterprise application platform that is much lower.
Yeah.
Then we need, for example, WebSocket support.
This is what I tell you. This enterprise, what it did, it bought from Red Hat a support contract.
We have that.
Yes. And this is the second option I want to tell. So the first option is you're dealing with not with EIP, but with Whitefly directly daily builds. It was the first one. You get the highest possible version of REST easy combined with JBoss.
But we are not allowed to.
This is the first option. Yeah, this is your problem, but this is the first option. The problem is what I said, you're not allowed to. Management doesn't like this because there is actually no contract assurance that it will actually, if something happens, you can sue Red Hat or whatever. So then is why you have to use, the signed version. The signed version is problematic because you cannot just easily swap REST easy because your contract will disappear as well. You cannot easily replace Hibernate with Eclipse Link because it is no more supported combination on JBoss. So you shouldn't do this at all, actually, because you get a wrong contract. But this happens exactly the same in all companies you buy services from. If you build SAP.
Switch to a new version. Then if you go the Docker way, that's just like that.
Yeah, but what he wanted to do, as I understood, JBoss EAP supported by Red Hat, but replaced within the platform with a newest REST easy. Yeah. But this EAP doesn't matter anymore. But I think Red Hat won't support this combination from him, so you can just use the Whitefly daily builds, and it will be a solution to your problem.
But that's a business.
This is business. This is a business problem. But really interesting thing. My opinion is, if you're a startup, use daily builds, but report all bugs and try to fix them by yourself. This is the first thing. Very pragmatic. The problem doesn't work in larger companies. And larger companies stick with the newest version possible and still file the bugs and force the company to fix the bugs. So your problem is probably not to use the newest REST easy. Your problem is you have a bug you would like to upgrade to the newest REST easy or something like this. Or to upgrade. right?
We won't have a newer version.
Yeah, and just buy the version, you know. But if you buy, I don't know, services from Pivotal or whatever, I have no idea what the business behind is, but they will also support, or Linux or whatever, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the same story. If you buy Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you cannot just replace the kernel from somewhere else and say support. It's not supported at all. Just as supported, this is just a business question, you know. And you get the same problem with whatever you are using. I'm pretty sure. Agreed, everyone? So this is not a technical problem. The problem is the application servers are not made to replace, you know, REST easy newest version with lowest version of JPA. They are tested as a platform, and if you provide too much variation, it won't work at all. And this is what I really try to avoid. I would never try even replace Eclipse Link with Hibernate or a Hibernate with OpenJPA because I will have to test too much. I don't do that. This is just total different mindset. This is actually the difference between Spring guys and Java E guys. I just don't care about the stuff. I would just use a recent server and it works. And the Spring guys would like to have the most recent libraries, which I really don't care anymore. But it's just flavor, I would say. This is just business decision. Agreed? Where's the Michael? We have the discussion. So Michael is on.
Just want to comment, you can also be a Spring guy and work with very old libraries.
Okay. Okay, I don't know whether the support is or whatever, but yeah, it could happen, but this is easier because Spring was made for modularity. It's the whole point of Spring. It is the point. If it works or not is a different story, but it's actually a different philosophy, or the philosophy. Yeah. Agreed? Nice comment. One team, one war, one application, one OS. On one application server is also an advantage having one application server per one war. Think about monitoring. You exactly know this is my application. I see only my traffic and my CPU load. Think about garbage collection. You know, it's a lot easier to optimize, and heap and scalability. So if you have multiple application servers running on multiple CPUs, they will always scale better than one application running on multiple CPUs. So there's actually just simplicity. So shared doesn't matter anymore. You can call it microservices, just reasonable. So why it's a risk to running multiple words on one application server? Doesn't matter anymore. You would save, but having 5 jars, you will save 100 megs of RAM, probably 5 cents or whatever you have here. What is the cents? Euro have cents, or what is Swedish stuff? How it's called? The krona, yes, but it's a small krona. How? Öre. Okay. So productivity from start. So I have to convince him with the source code. Servers are small and lean. This is actually this response, you know, direct response as slides to a question. This is an extremely agile talk. Startup is fast. With Docker, it takes seconds. With I think Tomcat and Jet is even faster, but I don't care even more. You know, it's not about minutes. Seconds is the difference, not minutes. Still annoying, but I'm waiting for faster SSDs. So. This is deployment is standardized. This is a huge point for me. So that I have a REST interface to deploy my stuff. Monitoring is also very important because some of my projects are task forces where I try to help customers. And the first question is, what the application is doing? No one knows this. So they can only tell me so many transactions, and the log file is full and nothing else, black hole. With application server, if you deploy one AJB, you will see, how often methods are invoked, what is the slowest invocation, faster you get it for free. All application servers are doing this for free. And management, throttling is very important to me to say no more than 20 concurrent threads out of the box. Skinny applications, also mindset. What I really prohibit in my applications, this is really what I do, is no external dependencies. So in my code reviews, I see commons dependency or Google Guava, whatever. I try to find what is the reason to use the library. If the reason is, commons lang, and they wanted to have a prettier to string, this is just crazy, right? So I delete whatever possible from the POM. Why? Fast deployment time, extremely important. Or should be as small as only possible, because we have the application server. What is crazy is to having application server, not using it, and deploying everything within the war. This is crazy. So we have 2 modes, I would say. Use something like Drop Wizard, which I have to gather some experience, or but where you deploy your service or whatever with your war, with the application, there is nothing, right? Or use the application server and hope whatever you need is already on the application server. Then just use it. So, but the middle way is crazy. So in one project in Switzerland, the architect told me we have a lightweight architecture because we have Tomcat, and the war was 500 megs. And the deployment took half an hour. Just zipping alone was, it's like, you are crazy. So why do you not put all the stuff on Tomcat? And then you can just use application servers. Because, I said, yeah, but it's lightweight. So what is lightweight? So who cares about, the size of the container? So well documented what it means. If I find a strange behavior on application server, I look in the spec first. And if the application server does not behave as it defined in the spec, I append this to the bug report and say, look, it was specified this way, but the application server behaves differently. So you get a lot better answer than any open source project, because open source you can say work as designed or whatever. But this is actually additional assurance. And what's also nice, Java E8 is already in the making. So if you are in Java 7 project, you can look at Java 8 and you know what is coming. It's also a unique story, actually, if you're interested. Questions so far? Everyone agreed? Yeah.
Well documented, no surprises. Is there any suggestions or good experience working with mostly JBoss, open source, and Tomcat? I mean, there's a lot of documentation on Google, but it's not like all documentation.
Yes. You saw the PDF specs from Java E. They're actually really well written. So really nice with examples, and a little bit boring because they're formal, but you will find your answers. So this is how I operate. So in my projects, I have download. I think not here. Store and docs, and I have, for instance, Java 7, and these are just Java 7 docs. For instance, the 53 pages just about concurrency, how thread pools over application servers with examples. And what I do, I perform full text search on the whole directory, I get answers from all these specs if someone has questions about transactions or whatever. And this is actually a unique success story in Java E, but mostly in the project, no one knows about this, and everything is free. JCP.org download everything, and you don't even have to sign up at Oracle or whatever. It's just completely free. And this is really unique benefit. I was teams which tried to implement a JCA connector. I pointed to this, and they don't even ask me again. They show everything is described. We just implement it as described, and it worked. So if you would like to use Java E, just use it. You cannot just read a book Java E in 2 days from someone and they say, okay, it works. This is actually the nice story behind Java E. No surprises means it's PDF, and what also no surprises means is there is all vendors are working together on Java E, but they don't like each other. So it cannot happen just that Oracle says, no, we will kill EGB next day. To say IBM and SAP will say no, impossible. So this is somehow stability behind. So this is also why Java is a little bit larger, because it's hard to delete something, because all the vendors say, no, I need it in my old application, whatever. This is actually, but it's also why it's so popular among larger companies. So forgot about Java E, now databases. So what occurs to me is in microservices, the databases tend to belong to the project. It's not like they are shared across many applications. It is better to keep the database local. And this is also always a good idea, except the problem that you have to use the shared database. But if you go with this, you can do with this. What we do then, the database end up being a flat file. So we don't care about normalization, whatever. We just store whatever needed in the database, and if the performance is okay and everything works, we don't care about this. Which is a little bit harder because larger companies tend to have database gurus which also fight with the object gurus. And in my opinion, you can even have a good database or a good object model, never both. Because if you have a highly normalized database, you will need joins for relationships or whatever. It is just always a little bit overhead. And if you have a good object model with simple mapping between JPA and database, you will end up having denormalized database. Just think about simple inheritance in one table, for instance. Okay. This is what we should address at the beginning of the project. And I just read about microservices, and they say, okay, it would be better to have one database per service, which is great. This is why NoSQL and everything is coming up, because then you don't need even relations between the tables. If it works, perfect. And in some projects, what we even do, we have services talking to NoSQL, we export the data from NoSQL databases to a relation database for reporting and stuff like this, data warehouse, and we are working with NoSQL. And then really doesn't matter, there's no sharing or not. The best practice of NoSQL database is denormalization, not normalization. Okay, robustness, stress testing. This is one of my most important things. Is who cares about unit tests, integration tests, and all the other tests? It's just single-threaded test. On an application server, from day one, everything will be multi-threaded. However, stress tests are widely ignored. So in my project, there's not even budget for stress testing. What is the difference between load testing and stress testing? Load tests are proposed by the domain experts, business product owners, or whoever, but they are realistic. What realistic means, they have think time between invocations. And I don't like think times because if you introduce think times in your scripting, the likelihood that two threads will meet in one method is very low. So what stress testing is, also called torture testing, brutal load on an application server and see what the application server is doing. And this is extremely important. And what I would like to see, how failures like not enough threads, not enough connections, optimistic log exceptions are looking like in the log file of the application server, to see how it looks like and how these stress tests are performed. This is the night job. The whole night the stress test is running, and the next morning we try to find out what actually happened to the application server. This is why I introduced years ago a project, open source project called Lightfish for Glassfish. We use this to monitor the whole night the application server and stored the monitoring data to a single table. And if you have this and you see, we get timeouts, whatever, then you have to deal with the timeouts. This is designed for failure. So what happens if a microservice is not available? And this is very crucial. You cannot solve the problem as a developer. You will actually have to ask the business department what to do then. Because if you look at the real world, everything is inconsistent, and the answer is always business answer. Never, you cannot repeat this. It doesn't matter usually. I give you a very brief answer. A brief example is actually if you book a flight, it's not, if you have the transaction is committed, it could happen that you won't fly it because someone with better status than you will fly it, and you will be rewarded with something else. This is a business answer to inconsistency on the flight. Or Munich Airport, I tried to book a flight and open the terminal, and it was too slow. Everything was green, but someone was faster than I was. I click on the seat, and it was already taken. So it's also a timeout. So you have to deal with this from the business point of view. And with stress testing, we see the problem early enough. Also an interesting problem in Java EE, optimistic log exception. Looks like technical exception. The problem is always business exception. This is actually two users overriding the data concurrently, the same data. This is the same like in Subversion or Git conflict, merge conflict. So there is no technical solution to this, usually. What do you have to do to merge or to override? Questions? Everyone agreed? No discussion, no questions? We are just two eager attendees. Everyone agrees whatever I say, right? So last slide, and then we can start with code. So architecture design. What I did years ago, I found an old patent called boundary control entity from Grady Butch, and it actually is, I just could try to draw. It doesn't fit perfectly to Java EE, but this is the boundary, this is a control, and this is an entity. And what I actually did, I said, okay, there is a component which is a Java package with business responsibility, domain responsibility, as is the outcome of an essential entity, product, marketing, invoicing, whatever. The boundary is to service to the outside world. Control is optional because if you have simplistic logic, you can just inject the entity manager here, and you have JP object exposed directly via REST. And if you have this, you're perfectly set. So, and now is the decision: how many such components belong to a war and made up a microservice? So this is actually what should happen. And one-to-one, I think, is too fine-grained. I would say typical. My observation is 5 such components in a war made up. What is a microservice? And 5 such components mean you could probably get here per component 5 to 10 entities, so you will end up having 50 tables. So this is actually a reasonable application, right? And okay, essential components. So logging and all the utility, no one cares about this, essential components. Business component entity. Why I introduced the old pattern? Because I always have to argue with my own names. And this is how it's called. Parkinson law of triviality. If all the hard questions are usually answered immediately, and all the questions about the naming and colors and style take indefinitely, and I try to avoid discussion in this point. It's like, okay, take these names, they're already set. We have the icons, just do it. So this is actually the only reason why I go with BCE or ECB. Bottom up, what it actually means. In the age of J2E14, we would start with J2E patterns, the old one. They are no more needed. All the problems are solved in the platform. So bottom up means use patterns if you really need them. Usually, this is also the point we have to discuss a little bit more. A Java 6 application is then good if you have 90% business logic and almost nothing more plumbing. So there is no more technical dependencies on the platform. This is actually the measure of quality. Continuous quality measurement, I don't know how to call this. What it actually means from day one, you have Sonar Source, Sonar Cube running. This is actually what I use as default. This is a like open source, free tool which measures the quality. It's really free. It's a Maven plugin and it runs on Jenkins perfectly. And what do? We continuously measure the cyclomatic complexity and the test coverage, and to identify problems. And on each iteration, we fix the problems from the day one. Why is it important? Then you are consistently slow during your projects because you are forced to consistently refactor your application. This is also what we did independently of microservices. And short cycles, 2 weeks are too long in my eyes. It should be a weekly or even daily cycle. This should be normal. And yeah, this is the ideas. And this is to build micro or nano service or femto would be Pico or whatever services for Java EE. And now you asked the question. So I think I don't have enough time to build application from scratch. But what I did, I created a so-called BC artifact from Maven, so everyone can try it at home. I will fire up the archetype, and it will create a sample application. We go through the code. And I could explain the code, and you can criticize me, what could be dropped in Drop Wizard or whatever. If not, I could create an application from scratch. So what do you prefer, from scratch or with the Maven?
From scratch.
Okay.
Oh. I will try and make it quick.
No problem.
Okay.
Questions first. So
I need to understand something. For example, you have an enterprise application with like the business domain, maybe involve 30 entities, and of course functionality around these entities goes into code and into jars.
yes.
Then we have this one big file,
Yeah.
more or less, that we deploy. So if I understand it correct, if we should try to take the business around these entities, put them into separate jar walls, right, and like a self-contained implementation, even with the database backend and everything, and we cannot do shared deployment. I mean, today the customer has, of course, a huge hardware platform, one application server where we deploy these. Of course, all this functionality in different jars, but embedded in the ER file. Does it mean that we cannot use shared deployment if the customer would actually have to have more virtual machines, or whatever would you do in that situation?
You absolutely can do shared deployment, but it's not needed. So you can just run a war per application server.
But that means they will have to run 30, for example, application servers.
Yes. 30 would be still not a problem on my machine.
No, but maybe conceptually.
With virtualization, conceptually could be a problem. Conceptually could be a problem. But I mean, shared deployment, it would be solution to a problem. And most known problems do not exist anymore, CPU costs and memory costs. If you have a management problem with open ports, whatever, so trade-off would be, to gather more wars on one application server. But this is just, a workaround. And the granularity in one project, my current project, there are 5 developers developing for 3 years already a product, and it's just one war. And they're perfectly happy with this. And their external consultants come in and say, you have to modularize and create jars, and I told them, just ask why. They should explain you why to do this. What is the business benefit? There was no question so far, no answer so far. Yeah? Say it could be more modular, who cares? What means modularity now? Because what they do, the product would be one file. They will deploy the one file and expect everything is working,
But won't you get the questions then from the administrators of the application server, the ones that might tune?
No, because it's product. No one cares about application server. We have to deliver the whole package which works.
But they are still tuning, right? They are doing thread pools, database pools,
Yeah.
some settings in the
Surprisingly, it is a fast enough without any pulling and tuning. But on one application server, it's easier to pull than to tune than multiple. If you think about this.
Yes, so if you go search with them, they have to put the 30?
Because we have one war, and the application server belongs to us. What would be in your case? You have one application server with my war and unrelated war, and then the application server is harder to tune, right? Because both applications can have opposite needs. One is, you know what I mean? So it's always easier to tune with one application server which belongs to you than one shared one. Agreed? Or was it actually answer to your question? Okay.
I got one question about data. You talked about having kind of the domain data in a flat file or a very simple.
Not flat file. This was just.
Yeah, but a very simple database structure. So specific for microservices
Yeah.
and so on. And then at the same time, you're talking about enterprise applications. And in my experience, quite a lot of enterprises, they want to do very complex joins,
Yes.
data analysis across those domains and those services. And that becomes a problem if you have
Yes.
data in different containers and
Yes.
different machines and different deployments. What's your experience on that?
My experience, you cannot change this, but sometimes it changes. So self-driven changes. Why? In some of my enterprise customers have problems, and the alter table takes too long. So the most extreme case, it was MySQL, 2 weeks. I never heard about this. They say, no, we cannot change anything, and then they end up having key value pairs in a table, which is crazy. Then who cares about joins? They had to join the table just to have the table. There's not even the join we needle to get from one table the entity. The joins between entities. It was just crazy talk. In other projects, we were forbidden to have relations to other tables by enterprise architects, but we needed them. So what we used, we were forced to do, this was crazy. We just built proof of concept to show that it doesn't work. To have JPA entities with type and ID, as a proxy, and to keep the relation of the client side. So all crazy things. But the truth is, you cannot change this easily in larger companies because this is a domain of someone else. But if you get problems with licensing, which happens more often, for instance, it becomes too expensive to buy an upgrade. It happens this year. I don't know whether something changed or not. Lots of requests to move away from relational because they cannot upgrade anymore. And alter tables, surprisingly, not the amount of data. Alter table takes too long. More and more I see 2 weeks were extreme, but 1 hour, 2 hours is very common. And 2 hour offline there's no more continuous delivery for 2 hours waiting, to changes. And this is what happens immediately. And also, I don't know, you're talking about enterprise companies. Big databases on host systems don't have foreign keys, not even constraints. Because what they would like to do to load the data with ETL in different orders. This is the crazy stuff. So you're not allowed to interact with the database directly. They use some PL1 or stored procedure, stuff like this. So this is actually in really big enterprise old projects, they don't have relations anyway. So they're looking already like NoSQL. This is actually the truth, right? This is insurance companies, banks, the larger ones, and the mid-size. They have probably crazy database administration. Not crazy. They build best practices, and they wanted to do this. But if you have shared database, what you can do? You can just build your microservice, and you get the problem with upgrading or whatever. If it becomes too hard, you have to change this. And the problem becomes your problem in NoSQL. You have no joins, so you have to build joins by yourself. And you have to upgrade the schema by yourself. It is doable, but it's a lot more work than SQL database. It's not like, everything comes for free. Actually, if you look at the programming model from relational database and SQL, I would prefer SQL because it's a lot easier. And you have to whatever if you start redundant data in the rows, if you would like to upgrade everything, upgrade something, you will have, to go all over the rows and, change the duplicated data.
Yeah. So what I'm saying here, there's various ways you can have complexity. But if I'm looking at this enterprise company that really has large shared databases, and for some reason they have made, some sort of modeling at least. So what they do, they want to join this customer domain with order domain, with a billing domain and so on. And they can do that using SQL today. So should we keep on using this shared database when going to microservices, or should we split it into different
Yes. Another interesting observation. The reason why we have relational database was because of consistency was very important. If you look at modern applications, they are no more consistent. For instance, if you have a Stack Overflow, you answer a question, you see the credit in your case immediately, but the others see it 5 to 10 minutes later. The same story with social graph and Facebook. Nothing is consistent anymore. So what you could do is, you can of course say, now my orders or whatever are not joins. I do it in my domain, and they are replicated later. but this will change the business domain, the business logic. So you will have to ask the business department about this. This cannot be your decision. But I think it has to slowly change.
For the database. Sounds like you're doing something wrong as a common problem that people are doing analysis in OpenCP databases instead of OLAP databases. What you should do is you should harvest the data from the production databases and put in OLAP databases, which are usually version.
Yeah, or one project.
If it really grows into being real analysis, then that's the obvious way of doing it. But usually the demands kind of grows. You start with something that is...
For instance, one time we used materialized views on Oracle, for instance, also work well. This was also a local hack. But this is a nice, interesting question. Is the consistency so important, or is it not that important anymore? And we have to change the business logic. If you change the business logic, you have no problem. But you cannot change the consistency levels without changing the use cases and the business logic. It's impossible. Yeah. This is what should happen. So you have to talk to business department first and sell your problem as a feature. This is what Amazon, for instance, does. Yeah, you buy a product, you get an email, you bought a product, of course, right? And then you get the next email with your product will arrive or not. Why they are doing this? It looks nice from them, but they are doing it because they cannot be consistent anymore. Yeah. They cannot just say that the product will arrive tomorrow because they don't know it. Even, because this is actually, you have to explain to the business department, you have to change the business logic that way that it looks nice to a customer, and we can hide our inconsistency behind this, and then you can do more on the technical level. It's impossible to be highly consistent, scalable, and nice and productive and whatever. Yeah. This is my belief. But you have to talk to the business people. It's impossible for us to change this with technology. And this is what I see in project, JMS, use JMS, everything is fine. They are sending a JMS message, and there's actually no answer what happens if the message type is wrong. And the pure developer, what it can does, it's called poison message, or catches the exception, transaction is swallowed. Rethrows the exception, the message is redelivered in the next 5 milliseconds. So there's actually lots of problems which are self-made because developers attempt to solve the business logic with their business problems with technology, which is impossible sometimes.
If I involve business too much, I won't be agile. I will start an avalanche of
And agile is a different topic. I would say this is like microservices. If you're a passionate developer, you are agile. I don't know anyone who is really like to develop software and is a waterfallish. Like, I would like to hack, but I would start with UML diagram first, and then write the rectangles, and the next day I would think about this and start an interfaces contract first. I don't like to see it working. I would like to start with interfaces and then implement everything, and then 20 days later as the application. Never happened like this. Everyone who likes to develop software is agile. Actually, here project in Sweden, everyone was agile, and then came consultants from outside say, stand up, pass a ball, so what were they talking? We are in one room, we are talking already with each other. The problem was completely different, but they were agile without knowing it. This is what happens in working teams. If you are productive and you like your work, you are agile.
And that's why I don't want to wait 20 days for a business answer.
Yeah, this is something wrong in your company. If you would, smaller companies, you go to your business and say, hey, I have the problem. What to do? Say, do this on this would be the perfect. But then you have nothing to sign, you have nothing to point to, and this is a little bit cover my S strategy, how it's called, Okay, you would like to see something. This is boring. You would like to hello world with Java. You did yeah, but I do it all the time. I do it all the time, always. So the first time I was very proud to show some slides, and you wanted to see code. You can ask questions if you like. Still, I would use daily builds because I downloaded daily builds last week, and this is what I used the last time. In Java E, I use actually Maven. Always Maven is the simplest possible thing. And I will still start with archetype, but an empty one. And what you can do at home, you can use the BCE. They get a sample Java E application. You wanted to see a simple one, so I go with the essentials, I think. This one, and yeah, Foo is nice. Nice name. And what it creates, you're actually on my side, because what I'm really fighting for is the craziness of enterprise architects, actually. There's a problem with Java. Is not like the Java E is not productive. The people behind Java E are crazy. To implement a Hello World, they will introduce 20 layers and 20 DTOs and everything is decoupled and actually forgot that they have to implement Hello World.
Yeah,
This is a problem. And then the developers spend time in the project and say, Java is crap, let's do Ruby, right? And in Ruby, the developers completely different mindset. They see the business logic, the business problem, just solve the problem. With
So that's actually exactly the reason why I'm so allured by Dropwizard, because mindshare and culture are important things. And by having a common culture about how we build things in the team, that's the way you achieve.
okay, this is a good point.
Yeah.
If I go to Dropwizard, they can say, hey, architect, your old stuff doesn't count anymore. We have completely different patterns, so you can hack the system.
It's a cultural thing that if we are to embrace microservices, why not embrace the whole culture of microservices? And by going the route that I'm not saying that Dropwizard is
No, whatever. I saw it. That's one example.
so, but by adopting these new technologies which really focus on something, I think you have a greater chance of letting all of your team realize what they strive to the same goal.
By the way, I'm
Because it is just the concept of microservices can be confusing, and there's so many frameworks, so many stuff,
yes.
ways to do things, and if you're constrained by it's like a send path, something that we're using this and everyone knows about the ideal path.
But what I did, I misused Java 6 for this. So Java 6 is the new hot stuff, you know, the lean, pragmatic, whatever, and all you know doesn't count anymore. Everything is different. And now we started over with microservices. This is what I used Java 6 for. Dropwizard, I wouldn't be able to introduce to my companies. No one, you know, this is the problem. But with Java 6, I can go to the architect side. Looks, I know you know all the J2E stuff, but this is, you know, all. But with Java 6, everything is different, which is partially true. But then I can do whatever I like, and I delete everything, and I just have the business logic. This is my way. With Dropwizard, would be a little bit, I would argue, 5 or 10% even more effective, but no chance to do it in most projects.
Yeah, no.
You know, this is actually, so to be realistic or pragmatic.
Given the idealized greenfield.
Yeah, and this is start with this. This is all you need to start with Java 7 project. One simple dependency. You say this is a war project, nothing else. It never is that way in my projects. Plugins, so Maven wars would generate websites. All phone numbers of all developers on each Maven clean. So you are crazy. I mean, what are they doing here? This is not a content management system. You just deploy one war. There were projects, this is no kidding, code review. The first thing I look at is POM. And I ask what plugins are included. They don't even know. There's everything in the recent conferences and Java magazines and whatever. All plugins they found are in the POM. Why? No question. And this is called cargo cult. Cargo cult is doing something because no one knows why. So you are a cargo cult. This is they go to the cargo cult programming, and there's a nice Wikipedia, and this is really nice. This is a style of computer programming characterized by ritual inclusion of code or program structure that serve no real purpose. Happens in all Java projects. Why? Because the architects now were developers 10 years ago, and what they learned 10 years ago try to apply now, which doesn't work anymore. In one project, they forced us to pre-compile JSF. Technically impossible. They wrote a book about this, how to do it. It's like, you confuse JSF with JSPs probably. Yes, this could happen, right? So we didn't even use JSPs, for instance, to give you how crazy it is, right? So, but back to then. So we have now Maven, War, and we have the first microservice. So I build this, we have a war. So then I can say, I would like to have JAX-RS. I call this always JAX-RS configuration, but it doesn't have to be this way. Really, what I do it always. So this is actually org foo cafe, org foo cafe micro something. And what you need to have is you have to think about a path, application path, call or V1 version 1, and it extends an application from core, and now I activated JAX-RS for the whole Java application. Everything is configured, no web XML, nothing. That's actually the reason what I said web XML is optional. So it is unusual to have it in Java 7. What I really show you right now is hello world. So I just show you this because he asked. I don't want to skip it. The first time, usually is what I always do at conferences, the people told me, you just showing hello world. The first time I started to do something more challenging, and you are not satisfied, right? So sessions resource. Sessions resource. So the session resource would be a RESTful web service with sessions, and I will return sessions. And what you have to invite the guys from drop wizard then, return drop wizard. So, and if I start this, run, it will build this with and then ask me which application server to use. What I have, let's try with Whitefly. I hope it's not running right now. I was not prepared. When I will kill all the Java processes, Whitefly is the open source version of JBoss. I could also run it on Glassfish. It actually doesn't matter. And you say meals and more. I have some applications already deployed. So, but hopefully this would work. Foo was V1 and sessions, right? And was it sessions, Foo, V1, sessions? Let's see here. V1 sessions. Curl full sessions. Not found. Let's do it again. This is the path. Looks nice. Should work actually. What was it? Whitefly, right? I could either Whitefly. The problem is I have lots of applications running on Whitefly, so I would just disable them all. Undeploy, and we're running out of time. Undeploy. Couple more minutes. So, and what was it? V1 sessions. Oh, it actually works. Drop wizard. So I don't know why. I just undeployed the old stuff. Drop wizard. And let's say the most important or most complex stuff in Java is an EJB.
But this is my point. You're adding complexity by using an application server. I mean, this is exactly one reason why you shouldn't use an application server, because you're adding additional complexity which you don't really need, because you could use them.
Yeah, but we need something which understands my notations, right?
Yeah, but okay, yeah. Yes.
You call it however you like, but then I would call it the Whitefly drop wizard. I could call it Hugo, you know, who cares? I mean,
Oh, yeah. You move on, yeah.
Crazy complex. And I put here stateless. And this is where usually the Spring guys leave the room. Oh, now it cannot do it anymore, right? This is too, get time. Return, I don't know, new date. To see something. He informed me we have out of time. So this is actually, now we have transactions monitoring management. Content, all the slides is here. So, I go here to sessions resource and could say crazy complex. CC. And now you have to know another annotation called end inject. And this is the only thing you need everywhere. And this is what you usually know, because including Eclipse E4, Maven, this is actually, this end inject is everywhere. And I could say, okay, cc dot get time. It doesn't recognize this. Oh, let's say, a second. Yeah. This was on-the-fly deployment, but something is wrong. It throws a lot of exceptions because I have applications, lots of applications run in the background without database. It's a little bit slower. And what I could do, I can say, I need another Pojo, of course, a Nanoservice, or the actual wizard. And public string, no magic. Return, no magic. So, and this is a Pojo without any management monitoring overhead, just a Pojo. So, and I can go here and say, where was it? The wizard was W at inject, and this doesn't work, won't work. I'll show you why in a second. because you see it's already recognized by the IDE, because what you need are very small beans XML is called configuration to allow the application server to inject everything. This is the only thing you have to know. And this is called beans XML. So, and this is what I'm doing right now. I would say everything is injectable and do it once per project. And now is everything you need. You have a RESTful web service here using a transactional service composed of multiple POJOs. And this is a typical Java 6 or Java 7 application. This is what I do in my real time. No interfaces, nothing. And if you say, what to take out? Nothing. But Tommy and Tomcat is not enough. Because what I'm using here is with this crazy complex, I get transactions monitoring management for free. I could use 5 different annotations, but this would introduce complexity. I could do this, but I don't like to do this. With this, I say, under which URI the application is exposed. It is important to do this. So I can minimize this. And here I'm exposing this class as a session and get this per convention is this serialized to a text plane. I could use JSON, whatever. So my point is it impossible to make Java application simpler? Impossible. What we have to fight with are crazy people, introducing patents with our cargo cult. There's really no reason to do this. Yeah, and in Java 6, starting with Java 5, really, there is no more XML. There is no more XML. There is no reason to use XML. You could override annotations with XML, but I cannot explain why. There's no reason to do this. This is the point, right? And I could use drop wizard. With drop wizard, for me, would mean I get the same, but I have to configure the wizard, which I'm not interested in, or Spring Boot or whatever. So Spring Boot would be a solution, but then I would ask someone create for me, a main configuration, what I always need. But then at the end of the day, I get the same story like with application servers. So what the application server should be even more smaller. It will be a little bit more optimal. But right now, it's already almost a paradise for me, really. So I have a small startup companies which asking, for 2 years, help us. We chosen Java because of productivity. They don't care about microservices. They care about earning money. And this is actually a good sign. And with persistence, it will be injection of entity manager. I could persist my stuff. Entity manager can be configured to use Cassandra usually, OGM or whatever, without no additional configuration. So this is the truth. And if usually I hack something like this in a YouTube channel, so I can do this. As you watch on the channel, you see lots of examples like this. And this is what I can show you right now, right?
I think I want to add to one largely underestimated feature of is the beam validation APIs.
Yeah, I can validate all the parameters, all the cross checks. It is internationalized, and even GSF. It is it's probably not capable, to create a pixel perfect social network. But for an admin, for administration interfaces, it's crazy productive, extremely productive. But it's wrongly used. So what happens? They are buying prime faces or rich faces, and then don't need even the components and try from the day one fight against the components, which is a crazy. This is just misuse of the technology. But it makes really sense. And I have to say, I really like it because it's really productive. There is no hot deployment stuff, nothing. You just use out-of-the-box Maven, what I really like. And this is what you get with NetBeans. And IntelliJ for free. In Eclipse, you will need an additional 100 plugins, but it will work mostly the same. But this is a different story about Eclipse. But yeah, this is really. So if the BCE archetype, if you use this, I created an example with embedded testing, unit test, integration testing, all the examples, most asked question with the archetype. So this would be BCE. Just skip this because you wanted something for Scratch, what I usually do. And yeah, so this is actually what I wanted to show you. How much time do we have? Nothing. Another minute. So this is what I can. Another offer. What I do the first Monday of the month, I create a streaming show. It has 6 CAT, so you can ask online questions and try to answer them. So if you have any questions, forget about Java, how you do this. We can do it online if you like. So this would the first Monday. This will be beginning of the September. So this is also my offer. And I actually don't care. I'm not associated with Oracle or Sun or whatever by any means. I don't even earn money with Oracle except write article 2 years or something. So I really don't care. But for me, it's the most most productive way of building applications with reasonable application servers. Whitefly, Tommy, Glassfish even, and WLP. WebLogic is a little bit larger, but still reasonable. And the full-blown WebSphere, I don't know what's behind the WebSphere, because it's impossible to produce 2 GB of bytecode. I mean, this is, you know, I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine what happens inside, you know. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the questions. And what I forgot, T-shirts. I not forgot, I have no room for T-shirts. No, usually I give for such questions a T-shirt or almost a jacket for your question, right? But what I do, I will bring the T-shirts to the AuraDev. If you attend the AuraDev, you get a T-shirt afterwards. So who asks questions, I will give the T-shirts to Par. And we'll take lots of questions to AuraDev. And what I have are some stickers. If you need stickers with ear hacks, you get stickers and T-shirts at AuraDev. Thank you for attending.